On this episode of the Dudes and Dads podcast, we're chatting with our friend Jansen Utech about youth culture.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lane.
Andrew.
Joel. I did the cold open this morning or this episode, and I'm not nailing it. I'm struggling.
Listen, man. We aim for sincerity on this show, a real life approach, and sometimes it comes out smooth and sometimes it doesn't, and that's just the nature of it. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Dudes and Dads podcast. Glad to have each and every single one of you along with us. This feels like it's going to be a special episode.
It is.
I say that about all of our episodes.
I felt like I was announcing like a boxing match or something there for a second.
This episode, we've intentionally. Well, we don't know. As we were talking earlier, we may have mispronounced our guest's last name or not.
But he doesn't know.
He doesn't know. No one knows.
Right.
So we'll find out soon enough. But before we do, we always want to say a big thank you to our number one sponsor, that is Everence Financial. Dudes and Dads is supported by Everence Federal Credit Union, helping individuals and organizations integrate their faith and values with their banking needs. Learn more at everence.com/banking. Credit union products are federally insured by NCUA. Thank you so much, Everence. We appreciate your support.
We do. So on our list, Joel, we've been kind of talking about possibly doing a dude con. I don't know what you call it.
So here's what we did a little research, Andy, and as I mentioned this to you before. So the Dude Con conference is already used because it's a Big Lebowski.
I'm the dude, so that's what you call me.
Bingo. It is a which if you have been not a long-time listener to this show, you may not know that I hold a very special place in my heart for all things Big Lebowski, for all things the dude. And so as I did a little research, I was like, Dude Con, a conference for dudes. Dude Con is a fan conference for all things related to the Big Lebowski. They wear dude-like attire and they talk about dude-like things. And
so needless to say, we're not going to go
We're not going to go down that avenue. I think there's probably some trademark issues along with some just general cultural misfits. I don't foresee us having a conference where I lackadaisically drink White Russians or Caucasians, as he calls them, throughout. No, because as we all know, it's only Liquid Death Mango Chainsaw for me. Not a sponsor,
but should be.
We're
thinking about possibly doing something this next year.
Yeah, what? And I'd love to hear some people if they've got some ideas, like what they would like at a.
We're tossing lots of things around. Physical conference in the Northern Indiana area, possibly a virtual conference, possibly a hybrid conference. We haven't decided yet.
Yeah. When you said physical conference, what immediately came to my mind is like that we would be doing like physical like feats of strength.
We might be.
Weightlifting.
Yes.
Physical conference. Yeah. No. But we'd love to hear some feedback from y'all on that, because I think I'm guessing, Andy, you have this sort of same sense of we have this listening community out there that we get to connect with certain individuals periodically. But I'm always just interested in kind of the larger conversation, and bringing the tribe together every once in a while would be interesting. So if that sounds like a good idea to you, let us know. If it sounds like a terrible idea to you, we'll take that too. If you want to be like, guys, I think at all costs you should avoid bringing the Dudes and Dads podcast listening community together.
Let us know by calling our voicemail 574-213-8702. I get that in whenever I can.
Thank you for doing that. Or you can always email us over at dudesanddadspodcast@gmail.com. That's a great spot too.
All right.
Yeah.
So our guest tonight, let's bring him on.
Let's do it. Jansen, hi, buddy.
Oh, there we go. Got to get him in the picture. There we go.
There we go.
What's up? I feel like I need to like lower my voice and talk like this into this microphone after listening to you guys do that intro.
Well, we do make it a little sultry. It does get a little passionate in here. Jansen, thanks for being on with
Absolutely.
us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. We like, as we say on the show all the time, we like to introduce our friends to our other friends, our listening friends, because we think we know some pretty fun people. And you're on that list, so congratulations.
Oh, wow, I feel so honored.
Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
Going straight to my head, Joel.
We're early on in the show, and things can take a real turn sometimes. But, Jansen, we always like to start off with what we call the dad stats. So this is where we want you to just tell us about you, your family, all things that you want to put out on the internet about yourself and your family. This is your opportunity. Just a little bit about you, your family, your kiddos, all that good stuff. We'd love to know more, so go ahead.
Well, my name is Jansen Utech, also known as Utech to those who are near and dear to my heart.
Nice.
I've got 2 kids, 2 boys, and
so you've started off the right way. Thank you.
Oh wow.
What is that? What is that
Shots,
supposed to mean?
Shots fired. No, because Andy and I both started our families with 2 boys right in a row.
Okay.
We did.
And it's turned out okay. Not that we don't love our daughters, but I feel like I was maybe better prepared. I think God was good to me by giving me two boys first.
Because you had the boys.
Yes.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay.
That
All
helped me usher me into parenting. I don't know, like if Molly would have been like number 1, we would have dealt with it, but I don't know if it would have gone as well.
You wouldn't have any choice. You would.
I know,
Yeah,
exactly. You have zero
to
choice.
deal with
That's
it.
what I'm just saying. I'm like, in God's graciousness to me, he's like,
He knew it.
yeah, he's like, bro, we're gonna ease you in. But yeah, so 2 boys,
2
nice
boys.
job.
And I've been married to my beautiful wife, Danny, for 5 years now.
5 years.
Going on 6. We like to go on walks on the beach.
Nice.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. How did you and Danny meet?
We met, we started working together at a coffee shop.
Oh,
As you know, every Christian couple does. It's either a coffee shop or college.
this is
Ring by spring,
And
you know.
what's even better is if it's a coffee shop at the college. Then
Or a coffee shop at a church.
at a
Oh,
church.
yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
practically the same thing if you
Yeah.
ask me.
Got it.
We started dating when we were teenagers.
Mhm.
We were both 19 years old.
Yep, way to do it.
So we dated for 4 years. You know, might as well just pop the question.
There
I
we
think
go.
we know, you know.
There we
Yeah.
go.
We didn't want a long engagement either, so quick, pop the question. I think it was 9 months later we were married, and
The rest is history.
Yep. So do that. I play Dungeons and Dragons
Oh, here we go.
every once in a while, and by every once in a while, I mean every 3 weeks religiously.
Okay.
It is the funnest thing I've ever done next to this podcast.
Yes.
you're not done with this podcast yet. You may change your
Again,
mind.
I'm
so
firing
much,
on
so
all
much
cylinders
can
here.
happen.
Firing
so
on
much
all
can
cylinders
happen.
here. What else? What do people normally share in this moment?
Hobbies, other things. I mean, you raising
Dungeons and Dragons. is a
Dungeons and
hobby.
Dungeons and
Dragons
Dragons
is
is
one.
one of them.
Okay.
Takes up a lot of my mental space all the time.
Jansen also plays the bass. And just for those of you that know anything about musicianship, when Jansen plays the bass, he plays it up here. And that's how you know that you're serious about your bass playing.
Serious.
I've never met a bass player who plays the bass up here who doesn't know a thing or two about bass.
It's
If
always,
they're down here, it's like, well, it could go either way.
it's the guys in the punk band that have them way down here. Right?
Exactly. Yes. And while I'm sure Jansen has played, I'm going to go on a limb, has played a few punk tunes in his day.
Yes.
Yes.
He does it right.
Now, when you did, was the bass lower when you played those?
No,
And
no.
it's
See, the fun thing about playing bass is the way you play is the same for everything, right? There's no difference between
Gotcha.
any single
Gotcha.
genre of music.
Yes.
You play 4 notes and call it good.
Okay.
It's the easiest instrument to play.
I don't. Okay.
You heard it here.
You say that. But like, Jansen happened to be playing at church today, so I'm speaking from recent observation. I've watched a few church bass players in my day, as you might imagine, after 17 years in vocational ministry, and there. First of all, there's more going on with this guy. He's being really like laid back about it. There's more going on with his bass playing. he's working the neck. Again, he wears it up here, so it feels very jazzy. Feels very jazzy and lively because it's not the low slung ding ding ding. It's not that. There's more than meets the eye.
Maybe
I'll
sometime
say.
on like a post podcast, we'll get him to just play the bass.
Exactly.
Well, thank you. I don't do well under pressure like that, so you're just gonna have to catch me outside.
No. So music though has been a part of your life.
Yeah, huge part of my life.
Yep.
I've been into music for as long as I can remember. My mom was a big influence in that.
Nice.
My dad, even huge influence, but in a different way. He just introduced me to cool music. So my dad listened to Pink Floyd
Nice
and
job,
Led
Dad.
Zeppelin
Nice job,
and
Dad.
the Beatles and all of like the old vintage classics. Whereas my mom is just a really good vocalist and can
nice.
sing super well.
Okay.
And she's like, you should be in band. And I'm like, you know what, Mom? Yeah,
Nice.
I should be in band. So I
Nice.
played trumpet. And then I hated concert band because it's too structured. And if anything, you're gonna figure anything out about me today is that I hate structure. I hate rigidity. I need to bend the rules. I need to get outside of that structure. Okay. So then I started playing bass because someone needed a bass player at a church, and I started learning on an acoustic guitar. So that's that.
Nice.
Also have a business with my buddy Chris, who is also the executive pastor at Restore Church.
What an interesting working relationship you guys have.
Yeah, he's my boss and my
Andrew's
fellow
side, yeah.
co-founder.
Co-founder and boss.
Yeah, it gets kind of weird.
Yeah. Well,
Our one-on-ones are every day. And he can't escape me. Whether he wants to or not.
hope you guys really like each other.
So tell us about this business.
It's a creative agency, so anything that involves creating, we want to have our fingers in.
Sure.
Mostly doing content marketing and brand strategy and brand design are kind of the three pillars that we kind of operate within. So that we've been doing that for the last 4 years.
Yep.
It's been a lot of fun.
What do you call your guys?
It's called ITER Creative. ITER Creative. We came up with the name.
We'll put it in the show notes. We'll make sure people find it.
Wow. Wouldn't that be something?
They do. Yeah, I mean, you guys do super great stuff.
Well, thank you.
And I think it's, I think it's worth sharing.
Thank you.
So Jansen, you mentioned the two things that I want to dive in to this evening.
Here we go.
Two big. We'll call it the big.
The big two.
The
We'll
big
call it
two.
The big two.
Very good name.
Perfect. Let's trademark that.
Let me check and see if it's
Let's see if
available.
it's available. So you mentioned the whole thing of getting what we would say now is getting married young, like this, like making that decision. Andy, you were
I was 21, 22. I forget.
22 when you were married,
21.
roughly?
Yeah.
Something like that. 20. Jackie and I were both 22 when we got married. You know, right out of college, but started dating when we were in high school. Same deal. Andy started dating Julie when she was in high school.
Hey, no.
Andy's a little bit older than Julie, not much, but we like to make a big deal out of it.
Nice.
Listen, at my age now, it's not that big of a deal.
It's not a big deal at all. Totally normal now. When they were younger,
It would have been a big deal.
Okay.
it was legal. Let's just be clear. I don't want to sound...
When we got married, it was legal.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay.
If I
That's all you
dated
need
in
to
high
know.
school, it would not have
Right.
been.
Had you been in high school, it would have
Not been right.
eyebrows would have been raised. But so I'm thinking now, I mean, to the average, so the average, I think we're at 29 is the average age for men in the United States for first marriage, 27 for females. And really thinking, I mean, that's 11 years post 11 years post high school graduation, a whole decade of life lived for people before if they are making that decision to get married, and fewer are making that decision itself. Thinking about your guys's your life situation, what do you think it was for you guys where it was like, because I'm wondering, you made that decision to get married. Were there other voices, friendships, other people around you that were like, really? Like so soon? Did you ever feel that at all?
No. A lot of our family and friends were really supportive. A
Nice.
lot of them were like, "Why aren't you married yet?"
Yeah.
Well,
which
you dated for 4 years.
We did
right?
it for 4 years.
Yeah.
We did it for a while. But I would say a lot of our formative years, I would say almost all of our formative years up to this point have been together.
Yeah.
Right? We started dating at 19,
Yep.
got married at 23, and have experienced so much life change together that it's almost impossible for me to not love her. Right? Like
so good.
Like that's
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yep.
been able to watch her navigate different scenarios. I've been able to watch us together navigate different scenarios, and to watch your spouse morph and change into the woman that she is supposed to be has been super cool to just stand back and watch.
Yeah. Friend of so Darren Schrock, who we've had on this show, who also attends as part of our congregation that we go to where Jansen works. Same thing, has said the same thing. I think we've had this common thread of there's a power and a strength of actually growing up together, of going through all those tumultuous early years of your early 20s where you're like your even personal identity and who you see yourself as and what you're going to do in the world and all of that are being formed. But they're being formed within the viewpoint, within the sight of your significant other.
Yeah.
That's not a part of your life that's a mystery to your future spouse or whatever. And I'm from what I hear you saying, I mean that for you is that's kind of a superpower in the relationship.
Yeah, because you know how one another reacts in different scenarios, especially like under pressure or like if there are family issues that come up, because marriage is hard and you're going to have family issues with your extended family. Like if stuff like that just comes up, you know how the other person is going to respond. You know how what the other person needs in that moment too. Like, so yeah, I mean, to not have that experience with Danny would be crazy.
Yeah.
Looking in hindsight, of course.
Yeah. I think there's a big, there's this cultural push to, get out of high school, go find yourself, right? You want to take some time for you.
Right.
And, in our show notes, I always, whenever I'm writing the possible questions that we'll ask guests or whatever, I prefaced it by like, hey, Jansen, why did you decide to throw your life away by getting married so young? That's a sarcastic thing, but you do get that vibe from some people of like, man, you're potentially harming yourself by making that decision to get married early.
Yeah. It's such an interesting outlook. It might be brash in saying this, but it almost seems kind of selfish.
Sure.
I want to understand. I understand trying to find yourself, right? But that oftentimes feels really lonely.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want someone that you're going to be experiencing the rest of your life with anyway? I feel like I'm speaking to the choir here, but
no, it's true.
You're speaking to, or you're spending the rest of your life with that person anyway. So like, why wouldn't you want to experience those moments with them?
Yeah. I think it comes down to, and what maybe I'm reading between the lines a little bit is, your view of marriage has a lot to do with this, right?
Yeah.
Like what I think for all of us within a Christian community context, I mean, you mentioned yourself, I mean, you had this community of people around you that are really cheering you on, cheering the relationship on, right? Andy would have had that. I would have had that. We had, we had parents and loved ones and mutual friends who were just so excited for us, and were there for us. And so number one, I wonder if people that are hesitant, in not all cases, but I wonder if people are hesitant to enter into marital relationships at a younger age. If number one is maybe they just don't have that circle of people, right? Like that, those people that are cheering them on. I think people just are really like, also just the view of marriage. There's a lot of jaded people,
right?
Too,
I think a lot of people look at that and go, "Oh, you're being tied down." Like, why would you may want to experience stuff that you can't later because you have a wife or a spouse. And I know I don't look at it like that. I'm like, the best things are when I experience these things with my spouse, right?
Yeah. If it feels like I think it's a uniquely different perspective to feel as though you have missed out on life because you have gotten married or connected with somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with.
Right.
Like that seems those are things that are really in tension with each other, I would say.
Yeah.
Did you guys feel like were there ever any doubts like leading up to the wedding day, or like questions of like, is this the right choice? Is this or did you just were like, no, this is definitely the way we're going to do this?
I mean, I don't know how anybody else's relationship is or was when they were dating. But the likelihood that Danny and I didn't see each other every day was like this.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, other than living with one another,
Yeah.
we had experienced mostly everything that we would if we got married.
Yeah.
Just with some, just a little extra sauce. Okay, we're gonna be dating with extra sauce. Sick, and it's all good sauce. It's all really, really good. It's marinara. You can dip your cheese sticks in it. It's real nice.
Nice. So great.
So no, I mean, there were no doubts, no second guesses. We were both just ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I wonder so many times, I know we've probably said this on the show before, so many times when it comes to like parents, for instance, sometimes parents can feel like they want their kid. It's a little bit of that go out and find yourself thing, but they want their kid to gain some sort of like independent stability on their own before they go and step into a relationship.
So you're saying essentially like you go from being at home with mom and dad
right.
to immediately being a spouse, right? And you're saying that you think that sometimes parents want to just kind of say, hey, you should experience this on your own and grow up before you get a spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's super important. Here we go. You guys ready?
Yeah.
I think it's super important, especially for students, to create some kind of worldview that is their own.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And whatever that looks like, so a way that they can perceive the world that is unique to themselves, whether it's influenced by outside voices or not, just something that they can have all these things and culminate into their opinion.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes parents are worried that their students or their kids will be influenced negatively if they start dating the wrong person, or if they, do whatever, if they don't find themselves first, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, like, I think it's the complete opposite. If you surround yourself with people who are like-minded and differently minded, right?
Sure.
So you can get different opinions, different beliefs, then you're more better for it. You're more well-rounded, and you can find yourself, but with others.
And I think it makes you unique because you get the opportunity to experience other things and kind of go, oh, I want to take this from this, and your worldview is kind of shaped on your own,
Right.
as opposed to being mom and dad's worldview.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it seems kind of brash to like, another fun thing. You go in high school, right? Or even, in elementary school. You go community all throughout 1st through 6th grade, kindergarten through 6th grade, middle school, community, all the way till 8th grade, freshman in high school, community, all the way to 12th grade. You go to college, to a 4-year college. What do you get? Community, 4-year college. Okay, now what I want you to go do is I want you to go travel in the mountains by yourself without any community so you can find yourself.
Yeah.
And no wonder people are so lost.
Yeah.
No wonder we have such a hard time finding what's up and down, because we have removed ourselves purposely in the thought or in the idea that self-help means by myself.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go find myself by myself so I can help myself.
Yeah.
That's a lot of me,
Yeah.
and not a lot of like we.
Right.
So we're looking at the culture that is today. It's self-help. It's I'm gonna step away from this because I don't have the mental energy for it yet. I'm gonna get heated today. I'm so sorry. You might have to.
That's good.
I can't even remember what I was saying. We take a step back in moments where we should really take a step forward because it feels easier to step back.
Yeah. I think that's just really, really helpful. I don't know. When doing like premarital counseling with couples and things like that, I think I have definitely felt at times, some, depending on what number one, depending on the strength of the marriage of their parents. So this is a factor, right? How they feel about marriage, how they feel about this kind of eternal, this covenant that they're making with each, their kids are making and all of that. But there is this, there is just this sense of, that that their kid needs to, find them, like that their kid will find themselves apart from community, like you're saying, that they're, where it's like, well, you need to be really realistic. I mean, they've been influenced by a community of people ongoing, right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, but
their whole life,
their whole life,
right?
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point to make. And yeah, and I just want to encourage people again and again. Like I am anti long engagement. I am anti, like, why would you do that to yourself? Like, I think if you have a loving, supporting community, and that you and your spouse, your future spouse, have some really things that you've agreed upon and talked through and have done all the proper communicating beforehand, it's like, go for it.
Yeah.
I think the harder marriage is the marriage after 30.
I'm 28, so
yeah,
we're not there yet.
But I mean,
but you're married, so
but like, I think as a thought experiment, like, for like the idea for me, and this is really extreme, but we'll back up in the timeline a little bit for you. For you to start seriously entering the dating circle now at this point in your life, right? That seems awful.
Terrible.
Awful.
I don't even.
Yeah. And the sort of things that you have to navigate would be at this stage versus what you did when you were dating at 19 years old.
Well, I think not only that, but you've gone ahead and you've already, if you're 30, you've already created that self, these are my traditions, this is my beliefs and stuff. So if you try to get involved in a relationship with somebody else, there's a lot more that you have to try to navigate,
because they've been doing the same thing.
They've been doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And unless you're marrying or dating someone way younger, which no. But
yeah.
But they've already had that. They've established their traditions. They've established themselves, and you're trying to do that same thing, and to kind of work together, that would be really hard.
Yeah.
Just trying to think about it, like, it would be really hard.
It is difficult.
When I got married and I was 20 something, I didn't really have traditions, right? Like, I mean, yeah, you have to navigate the whole, these are my parents and these are her parents.
Sure.
And they want to have Christmas together and we want to have Christmas together. Like,
yeah.
you have to navigate those things, but that's a lot easier to navigate and come up with when you're 20 as opposed to when you're 30.
Right.
Yeah. And I just think there's also a lot of relational heartbreak that can happen between 20 and 30 if you are even casually dating or just kind of trying to find that person out there. And I think you guys are one more instance of making that decision early and entering into a life of a family and building a family and all of that. It's good.
Yeah.
It's just really good.
Yeah. Thank you. I knew that, when Dana and I got married, I'd be sitting down at this podcast and I could get all the glaze from you, Joel. But no, I really think I can play devil's advocate a little bit, and I wonder if the major fear is, what if I change?
Yeah.
Or what if my spouse changes into someone that I don't like?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, that's a question. Like, what if?
And to a degree, they will.
Right.
Yeah.
But what's going to make that change at 30? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you wait till you're 30. How is that going to change? I mean, people are still will probably make some changes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just never know what to expect.
But Danny, Jackie, Julie, they are not the same women that we married.
No.
Right?
I would be upset, I think.
100%.
If Danny was the same person
100%
that she was when I married
her.
her. If there was no growth, if there was no change, it'd be like,
well, I mean,
are you okay?
The big key factor is they were not moms.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They were not moms when
there's a lot that changes when you become a parent.
That in of itself.
Yeah.
That in of itself.
Well, I know I'm glad that I changed since I was 20 something.
Oh, jeez, Louise. Yeah.
I had a couple piercings. And,
There were some choices that were made. And so, dude, I think that's, I think it's just something that's that's interesting. I know probably a lot of people probably that this course of getting married earlier is probably more common amongst kind of our faith tradition.
Definitely.
And because there is this, if we can just say it, I mean, there's also this like, hey, I'm not going to live a sexually promiscuous life out,
Right.
in these years having multiple partners, right?
Right.
So so for me, it is, if I don't want to go through life single for a long period of time and absent of those things in my life, those are not the reasons that I'm getting married, but it's like that's a real element,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not, because if we could all just be honest about this too, like I don't think any dude, quite honestly, apart from some gift that they have been given, I think that's a pretty unique one, is going to go through their entire 20s and be like, hey, remain single, date casually, but also bring your sexual ethics with you into the fullest measure, right?
Yeah. What do they say? Think with your big brain.
Yeah.
I
That's
won't.
right.
I won't finish. But you can fill in the lines.
Yeah. So it's just, and that's why I think in student ministry you sometimes, unfortunately, in young adult ministry experience this. There's a lot of very wounded, and this is a whole other show, but it's like there's just a lot of very wounded people, I think, because they didn't want to make that relational commitment early. And there can be, again, a number of reasons why they chose not to. That could be abuse from their family. That could be kind of a lack of self-confidence or a personal image issue, whatever it might be. But they didn't make that connection earlier in life, and then they walk through what I see now is just this really like relational minefield of kind of with the hookup culture and the 20s and everything that's thrown at you. And it's like, I would not, as a 20-something today, I would not want to navigate the world in which we have alone.
No.
Like,
no shot.
That sounds terrible. So, congratulations, Danny. You've been really well spoken of on this show, which we expected nothing less. But we got to get under the hood a little bit on this, and that's way to go, and way to be married to this dude. Thank you so much. So, okay, so you went and you got married and did all this. How long have you been? Because you're a youth pastor now.
Mm-hmm.
Key point, people. Youth pastor is one of the crazy ones.
I'm drinking Mountain Dew at
on point.
9:10 at 9:10 p.m.
On point.
I had to represent the brand, the youth pastor brand.
You didn't bring in a pizza to the studio.
You didn't bring a guitar in either.
I
So.
didn't. All right, just one of the many.
1 for 3. Tell me about your decision to enter into vocational ministry. Like, what was the course there?
Gosh, I don't know if it was necessarily a decision, more like an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So just to go back a little bit, I grew up in Granger, moved here in high school years, and was involved at a church, just at GCC.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved in the GSM program freshman year to senior year. There I was introduced to leadership. I was introduced to the impact that God can do through me.
Mm.
I was introduced to tools and people that could help propel my future in whatever direction I wanted to. And that really, really impacted me. And I looked at the work that they were doing at GSM, and I looked at my life and was like, that would be sick. I would love to, selfishly say that through me, God has used every single ounce of me to impact arguably thousands and thousands of people after looking at like generation after generation, right?
Yep.
So that could be super, super cool. And then the other half of my brain was like, nah, you don't need to do that, dude.
The more practical side of you.
What do you mean? Youth pastor salary? Nah.
Yeah.
No shot. So went to college, went to Western Michigan for an entire year. I was planning to be an Air Force pilot. I wanted to fly fighter jets. That's what I thought I was going to do from the very beginning, from the time I was born until the time I, spoiler alert, dropped out of college after year one. And I was kind of just left floundering, not knowing necessarily where to go or what to do next. So I picked up odd jobs here or there, and always in the back of my head, hey, what about that youth pastor thing? Picked up an internship with GSM quickly after I dropped out of college and was like, yep, this is for me. So I didn't necessarily go seeking out a youth pastor position after my internship. Looking in hindsight, I can say that I was waiting, but in reality, I was just lost, right?
Interesting.
And not knowing where to go next and just hoping that the next step would open up and I would just take the opportunity. It's like, all right, God, you've got this for me. Sick. I'm going. So I started working at Monteith Tire, then went to Gurley Leap, and then went to Janus Motorcycles. And out of the blue, Gene Troyer, the lead pastor, was like, hey, you interested in he said really cryptic. How much do you like your job? And I was like, oh, all right, here's the next door. Let's kick this sucker open. So kicked it open, and next thing you know, I'm in youth ministry for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
That's an awesome story. I love hearing how God used that even when you weren't expecting that, and even when you were kind of a little bit like, no.
Yeah, I tell the students all the time that was my Jonah moment. And I look back at we were just talking about this today, high school students this afternoon, and talking about how oftentimes God's plan looks like a fish, and you're not really looking for a fish, you're looking for a steak, and looking for a cow, and it looks completely different than you could ever dream or imagine. But in the end, right, you end up where you need to be, as long as you're open to whatever opportunities arise, whatever God is placing in front of you. If God's asking you to wait, sometimes you don't even know that you're waiting, but what he's asking you to do is rest.
Yeah.
And just do really good work for the kingdom wherever you are.
Thinking about youth ministry today, I mean, 3 years in, but then obviously lots of experiences with it prior, kind of in your preparation for this role that you're in now. What are you most hopeful about within youth ministry, and thinking with your students and maybe other broader, because I know you hash it up as which I think every youth pastor should, with other youth pastors, kind of getting a sense of what kind of the greater ministry community is up to. What gives you hope for young people right now?
This is the most on fire generation I've ever seen. They are craving authentic relationship. They are craving transparent interactions, and they just want answers. And I think there's a really, really cool opportunity that these students are taking in asking big questions. So I'm really hopeful for this generation, because I think out of all of us, they're going to do something absolutely crazy, just given social media and their influence there and their ability to navigate quickly, to capture culture and trends quickly, to look what's coming in the future quickly, and using that then to be the kingdom. I was at the Motion Conference this summer, which is a conference in Alabama, and there were over I think it's 30,000 students in that room just worshiping Jesus. It's like Passion, right?
Yeah.
But like middle school, high school students instead of high school, college students. And it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was super cool. They're all deeply, deeply on fire. Once they catch, it's game over.
Do you I'm wondering if they are, because I think about the dynamics right now, like serving as a PTO president right now for our intermediate school here in Goshen, and serving as operating a youth service agency that is helping kids get at risk kids age 6 to 18 get mentors, and thinking about all of that, and just thinking about kind of the relationship that a lot of these kids have with their parents or their guardians in particular. You see all this potential in young people, of which I would agree. And by the way, I think any youth worker worth their salt has that perspective, is aware of the potential that exists there. I think, and you got to keep that in front of you too, because if you don't, you'll be like, what the crap am I doing?
Right. You can quickly spiral.
Yes, quickly spiral, right? 100%. But thinking about parents, and maybe not even, we'll give a quick pat, not even the parents that at your church, other parents, other places that you've heard about. I'm concerned for parents. I'm concerned for the relationship or the type of relationship that they have with their kids. And maybe thinking about faith development, just the category of faith development. And this is a challenge we're right in the center of. I've had some kind of difficult, I think challenging thoughts. My own kids, I am beginning to have a concern that my pastoral career was actually a hindrance to them having to change churches, them being uprooted from things a few times, being PKs, all of that sort of stuff. That enough dynamics there. I've kind of wondered. I'm like, I think that was a bigger deal than what I probably gave it credit for. But thinking about how parents are interacting with their kids in the area of faith formation, what are your concerns there?
Yeah, I think a lot of parents just don't know what to do.
Mm.
I think, and this is not every parent. I'm generalizing, but I think a lot of parents think that this little thing is the devil.
Yeah.
Ooh. I think,
yeah.
take that. Stomp the devil. Sorry. I think parents just don't know what to do. They don't know a way forward. Oftentimes, they don't know where to start. They don't. I think there's a little bit of fear wrapped up there as well. Of just, concerned about their future.
Well, and I think as this generation, I mean, thinking about like ourselves, Joel, we're a little bit older than Jansen is.
Yeah.
But I mean, even for ourselves, like the world has changed and is changing so fast these days. Where like we've even seen in our lifetime, I remember having to dial up with AOL, right?
Yeah.
And that was a very specific thing. And like it's changed so much, even within the last 5-6 years, even the last 5-6 months. That for I think for parents sometimes that gets scary because they don't know how to keep up. Because you had mentioned that the kids these days are very good at adapting and getting and I love that because I think that we're gonna see them do some stuff for God that we have no way to even imagine right now, just because they're gonna adapt and it's gonna be amazing.
Right.
But I think as parents, sometimes that's scary.
Yeah.
Because of the technology and not even just technology, but the world in general is changing so fast.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think you're definitely right with what you're saying.
Yeah, I think I get a really unique perspective because I'm just old enough so that they look at me for wisdom, and I'm just young enough so that I can kind of keep up a little bit.
Yep.
But I think I would have noticed, I think one of the most impactful things when it comes to like what students want, I think from people who are older than them, people who they want to look to for answers, I think they really just want you to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they crave. I don't think they want you to feel like you need to keep up with the trends. I don't think they want you to dress a certain way. I think what I've seen from my students is they just crave your authentic self. And oftentimes I find myself in this place where like, okay, I've got to keep up with Skibbity Toilet, and I gotta I gotta wear Crocs, and I've got to have the tall white socks, and I've got to dress the part, I got to look the part, I got to talk the part. But in reality, they don't care. They just want who I am.
Yeah.
They want to know that I care about them and that I'm listening. And I think that's a great place to start as a parent.
Yep. Being conscious of what it actually takes for you to gain access to their world, like what really matters to gain access to their world versus some of these kind of ancillary or less meaningful expressions.
Right.
When you think about how our kids are doing, the mental health picture for our young people is pretty. I mean, it's pretty. Gosh, I don't want to say bleak, but it's kind of it feels that way at times. Self-harm rates, suicide rates amongst young people. I mean, that's a real thing. I know in my world, the amount of government funding that keeps on increasing for youth mental health well-being in the kind of in the grant space and things like that. Like there seems to be a lot of clamoring around trying to figure this thing out, and why our kids are struggling so much, and struggling so much in a first world country. I mean, talking about the United States here specifically, where they've got, the things that you would normally attach to mental illness, like they're not worried about, there's not like a war going outside of their bedroom, right? There's not famine, like some of the things that are really, massive, and no longer like so many youth in Africa where the massive previous AIDS outbreaks or plagues or things like that, have occurred, right? So those aren't those places of threat are not there, and yet we would see them, a lot of young people within their mental health, acting as though those sort of imminent threats are there.
Yeah.
What do we do about that? How do we actually begin to gain ground? When you and again, that's a giant, I know it's a giant question, but for the number of kids that you're responsible for, that are coming through, your program, what have been some things that you have thought about?
Oh man. First off, I have no clue.
Yeah.
I just want to preface with that.
Yeah.
I've got no idea. There are some interesting patterns and trends relating to social media. I just said that this little black box is not the devil. It can be, right? I think social media just expedites the human condition, right? So you look at, comparison, the thief of all joy. It's really easy to compare yourself to your neighbor back 20, 30 years ago. It's really easy to compare yourself to the 19-year-old millionaire that is flying in private jets and doesn't go to school. Comparing yourself, I think comparison is really the root. I think social media kind of just exponentiates it, So I think that's probably one of many variables that have been introduced over the last 10, 15 years. We're seeing students feel like they're not doing enough. We're seeing sixth graders with 3 hours of homework a night. We're seeing crazy, crazy things happen that I remember when I was in middle school, high school, I never really thought about any of that stuff, right? I think that I also was, I understand my privilege, right? Like, I know that I grew up in a middle-class white family, so that also plays into it of we didn't have it perfect, but shoot, I didn't have to worry about much. I got to eat Pop-Tarts in the morning. Are you kidding me? Right. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of things swimming around there. I think that social media and the use of comparison, or in the theme of comparison, is really kind of, from my very little corner of the world here in Goshen, that's kind of what it is for my group, I think.
Yeah, and if only kids knew that they were. I think the challenge is to try to pull the veil back behind all of that, and to really, it's be like, hey, you actually you're all in the same boat, and even the most well-respected influencer out of all of them, I mean, we see again and again where life's not so great for them either. They've got their the human condition affects all people,
right?
And I just Andy and I have done our best in terms of I think what our commitments are to how soon our kids have access to certain social media side, and the back and forth on when they get phones, and when they do, how
what do they have access
to do, and all that, and on lockdown, and that's a theme that keeps on coming up again and again in our world, and yet I wonder from your perspective, are you able, would you have some observations about kids pre and post social media, pre and post phone, thinking about them before they had it and thinking about them after they had it.
Their haircuts change.
Yeah.
That's the most visible thing that I can think of.
That's interesting.
As far as I don't have a lot of data.
Yeah.
Just not a lot of students coming to students, my group with phones, with access to social media.
Yep.
So I don't know if I can really speak to it, but it would be a really curious thing to look at, and even like, hey, I'm going to ask you these questions before, like, even as parents. I think it could be really cool to be like, hey, just like as a tracker, right?
Yep.
I'm just coming up out of the blue. Here are a couple questions before I give you this phone. We're going to track your time. We're going to give you restrictions, screen time, 2 hours a day. That's high. And then in 6 months, we're going to come back. Hey, I'm going to ask you these questions again and see how the answers differ.
Yeah.
And then I wonder if that would be an interesting, like, I don't know if monthly is too much, but I mean, how much are you willing to check in on your kid to make sure they're okay? Right.
And that's the question. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't necessarily have an answer, but it'd be interesting to see if we can track it.
Know that.
But I think from your general observation is, though, kids that are coming into your program, though, they're already on the hook.
Yeah. It's, I mean, even before, right?
Yeah.
Especially if they've got older siblings, right? They get just vicariously are hearing, reels and TikToks and all the trends and all the fun
and as a
stuff,
parent,
right?
that's a tough thing too. You can set that time saying, I know for, maybe it's 15 before they get a phone or whatever, but then the next one, it's like, well, it really would be nice for you to have a phone because
you're in basketball now.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know where you're at, and it'd be nice to have this. And then next thing you know, your 4-year-old has a phone.
Right. And then there's this fun variable of like, are we potentially limiting our kids' ability to succeed in the future by taking away this, or by reserving this privilege, right? I think there's a fine line there. I think, a guy's frontal lobe, when does it fully develop?
So at the earliest stages, 25. Some studies say all the way up to 29.
Okay, so
mine's
might not even there.
Maybe not.
Still moldable, still squishy.
Yep.
No, but like there's a fine line, of course. But I this is the question that Danny and I ask ourselves often. Are we limiting our child by trying to give them the childhood experience that we had, or should we help enable them to have the best childhood experience that they have today?
But I think that's a tough question, because I think, if we give them the phone or whatever, is that limiting their best childhood experience?
Right.
Because really, I mean, if you think about it, the childhood that we had, we're riding our bikes, we're out there, we're making ramps and stuff. The kids these days, it's like, I can jump a ramp. It's on the PS5. You know, like, we're sitting at this technology.
Way fewer skinned knees these days.
Right.
And it's just not okay, Andy.
Right.
We need some bruises. We need some
pain.
We need some pain.
We need some trampoline burns.
Some asphalt.
So that's just like it's something to think about. Like, is us giving the phone, is that limiting how their childhood is?
Definitely. I think it's a valid question, but it's something that keeps me kind of on my toes of like, okay, what is going to set JR up for success?
Yep.
And I think that's what we all want, right? We all want our kids to be set up for success once, they fly out of the nest. But I wonder what that looks like.
What do you think the future? I mean, thinking of the iterations that youth ministry has gone through, the first, without getting too deep in the youth nerd weeds, the first major survey, youth ministry survey, the National Study of Youth and Religion, came out when I was graduating high school, so 2003. This was 2,500 kids across the United States, and this is Christian Smith at the University of Notre Dame came out with this, and then there were other significant youth ministry authors and thinkers that built upon that study, and from different places, and it's been kind of interesting to follow over time. But this is where, the study basically said that, hey, you had all these kids from different faith traditions, so some within the broad spectrum of Christianity, so that mainline churches, evangelical churches, fundamentalist churches, and then kids that were Buddhist and Muslim and Hindu, and basically the study came back and said all of them shared pretty much the basic same theological beliefs. Now, for the evangelical kids, that was scandalous for youth pastors, right? Because like we've been dumping bajillions of dollars into getting the Bible into these kids and whatever. But for all that effort, basically this summarized the study in a bunch of different ways, but for all that effort, those kids were not walking away with a uniquely Orthodox Christian perspective, right at this time.
Yeah.
And I point out now, those kids, I mean, I was graduating high school when that study came out. Those people are the ones that are in leadership now in faith communities.
Yeah. A
lot of us. I mean, I'm going on 41 years old. I wonder, and so now this is where the big term moralistic therapeutic deism came out. This is where that was the theological belief, right?
Can you run that one by me one more
time? So moralistic, the idea that God, these kids, these young people, teenagers, the view was that God simply wanted them to be good. That was that's the moralism part.
Yeah.
Therapeutic, God is there to help them solve their problems. So there's kind of a therapist in the sky.
Yeah.
And deistic, so deism goes way back into past the Enlightenment period. The idea that God is kind of this clockmaker that winds it up and then just sort of sets things in motion and then is kind of a hands off.
Yeah.
So any sort of sense of like we as Orthodox Christians of a God who is incarnate in Christ, near us, with us, Holy Spirit, that is not a primary understanding of that theological, right? And I think if we all looked around and if we thought about relationships that we've had with people, moralistic therapeutic deism is kind of the default general theological, perspective on faith, right? There could be a God just kind of wants me to be a good person. There's a list of good things that I should do.
I've got rules.
I got rules. There's rules. Therapeutic. Well, okay. When things get bad, I can pray, and maybe he'll do something about that. Maybe, right? And then, he's kind of an old man in the clouds, and then the deistic part. And it's not really incarnate, not near. So I think about that as the kind of a benchmark, that was forming leaders in the church and kind of informing. And and here we are 20 years later after this. What, from your perspective, what concerns you about youth ministry in the church right now? So you've talked about what you're hopeful for. What concerns you? What are we spending? Because I got I'll just full disclosure, I got a real axe to grind, big picture, to say I think we spend a ton of time on things that do not matter when it comes, like, that are not getting the results that we say that we want, that we spend, and there's all different reasons for that. That's a sermon I'll preach sometime, but I have that concern, and I wonder what you would push back on there. And then, just like what do we need to be doing? What do we need? Where's the future of youth ministry going? And heck, should there even be youth ministry? I mean, we can even put that out there. Like, should even youth ministry organize itself the way that it does?
You want me to talk myself out of a job, Joel?
always, Jansen, please.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Something that I wrestle with daily. A big question that I've been asking myself, or a big thought that I've been having over the last 6 months or so, is hearkening back to when I was in student ministry. And what do you do when you're at student ministry, right? You or at least the one that I was at 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you get there, you hang out for 30 minutes. You play video games, play cardboard ball, ping pong, whatever. You go into this big room. You got some super energetic dude up there who's trying to hype the crowd up. The crowd doesn't want it.
They do not want it.
You play this stupid screen game for 15 minutes. And mind you, this is what my youth group looks like right now.
Yeah. It's the youth group that I led.
You play stupid screen game for 15 minutes. You teach for way too long. 45 minutes, that's stretching it. 30 minutes. And then you're upset when your students don't follow along. And then you give them 2 minutes for cruise and you send them on their way, or small groups. Sorry, that's what we call cruise or small groups at our church. And I look at that and I think culture has changed so rapidly, yet the ministry that I am operating and running is still operating like it's the 90s. My students don't really care about pizza parties. My students don't really care about screen games. My students don't really care about anything else except hearing what God says about them and about the people around them, and then also knowing that they've got a community of people who are surrounding them every single day in prayer. And when they're there on Wednesday nights or Sunday nights, they're there to listen and care for them and show that they care for them. So how then can we shape our youth ministries around these moments of care and relationship? What does that look like in the future? I've got no clue.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something that I've been challenging myself on lately is my students don't want to hear me ramble for 30 minutes. They want they want a passage. What is this passage doing? What is God saying in this? And how can I apply it then to my life?
Yeah.
Now let's go talk about it with trusted adults and my peers.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I think that's where it's going. What does that look like logistically? I've got no clue. I'll tell you when I've got some kind of resemblance of an idea, right? But we're testing it right now with our high school students.
Okay.
And we are I'm calling our high school students faith in action behind the scenes anyway, right? Because I'm thinking, okay, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you're teaching them about what faith is and how to have faith. Okay, now how do I practice that faith? Okay, so my high school students are operating practically everything on Wednesday nights for our middle schoolers. They lead worship, they run tech, they set up, they tear down, they run the games, they do the host moment at the beginning, everything. Okay, that's faith in action, that's serving others. Okay, now how do I, what is talking about God to people around me in my school who don't know Jesus? Well, do you have a relationship with them first?
Yeah.
We have this mantra, I guess is what you would call it at Restore, called who is your neighbor? Who, not your physical neighbor. Who is the person in your life who you love dearly but doesn't know Jesus yet? Who is this person in your life that you just happen to be around often? And you want to be really intentional about your relationship with them, not to turn them into a project, not to get them to come to church, but show them truly who Jesus is.
Yeah.
And I want that's what I want my high school students to leave Restore with. How do I act on my faith, and how do I love people around me?
Yep. It sounds it's less of the sage on the stage thing for sure.
Yeah.
I see that, and I'm just suspicious about all the I mean, in the youth men space particularly, there's a lot of high profileism, characters, all of that.
Nobody needs unicorns with rainbows coming out of their butt. Middle schoolers don't need that, man. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so, I think we're due for the church. Church always struggles to be kind of at the razor's edge of those sort of things, but it's there's an overhaul.
It's such a miss, Joel. We need to be at the razor's edge.
Yeah.
Because if we're not, guess where they're going for their answers, right?
That's right. Yep.
And it's a huge responsibility for any youth pastor to. I carry this weight often, and I don't know if I necessarily should, but like the fact that there most likely will be students that come through my ministry that will leave the faith.
Yeah. Yes. Statistically, that's absolutely true. Right.
So Gene always says, you're not responsible for, you're responsible to. So how can I be responsible to my students, but not responsible for them, and set them off with the best chance they can get?
It's a good word.
Well, it's a lot to dig in.
Much to think about.
Lots
to think about. But really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Before you leave,
oh boy,
and now it's time for the Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz.
Thank you.
All right,
I'm ready.
All right. Are you sure?
So you say.
I'm not ready.
So if you've never joined us, this is the time where we just pepper Jansen with questions that he can't prepare for.
That's right.
I wanted to let you know Eli picked these questions out earlier today.
Oh, nice.
So,
way to go, Eli. Thank you.
yes. All right. I'll start.
Okay.
Good.
What is your most treasured possession?
I have a coffee mug that Tyler Hartford made
Yes.
for me for Christmas 2 years ago. It has. It was just after my son JR was born. My son is named after me. He's Jansen Roy Utech the second. I'm the first. So Tyler made me a coffee mug that I use every single day except for Friday and Saturday because I'm not at work. That says the original Jansen on it. It's been broken once. Tyler quickly, and I'm talking freaky fast, made me another one, and it was probably a 2-day turnaround.
Wow.
So currently, that is my most prized possession.
Tyler Hartford with a shout out. Nice
Tyler
job.
for the win.
Nice job, Ty. Jansen, what's your favorite kind of soup?
I'm a classic. Just a nice chicken noodle soup.
Ooh, a nice chicken noodle soup.
Hold on. Campbell's chicken noodle soup.
Oh, even more
Oh.
basic. Fantastic.
Dump it, water, dump it.
Done,
eat it.
Easy.
done, and done.
All right. This is a little bit more deep.
Oh boy.
If you were to die tomorrow, what little thing would you regret not doing?
Oh boy, you might need to cut out a lot of dead space for this one.
Well, I was already thinking right before this. Like you answered the last two, like lickety split,
Yeah,
like
there was-
quick. I think you were making things up.
There's bound to be one. No, those are both legit. The one thing, if I die tomorrow, that I regret not doing, this is gonna be kind of heady. Not being present where my feet are.
Mm.
I don't know if you need any more explanation
Nope.
than that, but just not
That's
being
good.
present where my feet are.
That's so good. Jansen, when you think about, actually, because I was going to ask this, this is all like end of life questions. When after you breathe your last breath,
Mhm.
what do you hope? What do you hope God says to you?
Well done, good and faithful
Yeah,
servant.
right.
I feel like I've been called to make a massive positive impact on the people around me. So I think for God to just say, "You did it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Good job. You did it."
I think you're on track. buddy.
Yeah. Last question from me. What are you most excited about right now?
I am really excited to see my oldest son's reaction to all of the Christmas lights and the Christmas
Oh,
magic
So good. Yeah.
that will be in the next couple months.
That's awesome.
I'm so pumped. He's just getting to the age where he's like looking at lights and, realizing that seasons are changing, and he's been super into Halloween. Scary.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get him onto the Christmas train,
Right on.
But that's what I'm excited for.
If I were to ask Danny what her number one pet peeve about you is, what do you think she would answer?
I got two. Can you take two?
Yes.
Leaving my beard trimmings in the sink.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or
We've all been there. I think we've all been there.
My wife all the time.
Yeah,
as,
yeah.
as
That's
bearded
why-
men,
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I stopped shaving.
Yeah. Good call. Nice.
Or this one's a little more niche. Leaving my socks in the couch.
Socks in the couch.
Picture this, right? You get home from a long day, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Boys are asleep, kids are asleep, right?
Uh-huh.
You're just relaxing. You put
Yeah.
a little blanket over
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh no, pesky socks are
Socks.
on.
So you-
Take those
you-
suckers
you-
off right there. Don't even reach down with your toes.
And they're in the,
And
the
they're
crevice.
they just work their way into the crevice.
Jansen, I feel that was maybe one of the more relatable things you've said this entire time. Because the moment you said that, I'm like, no, I know exactly how this happens. Oh, that's so good. Jansen, congratulations.
Yes,
you
you
have
win.
passed the Dudes and Dads
Oh, wonderful.
pop quiz. The camera is staring squarely at the wrong part. Okay, we're at the end. It doesn't, as Andy says, it doesn't
all.
matter. My friend, thanks for being here. Appreciate
having
you
me.
for coming on. As always, friends, you can head over to dudesanddads.com for, I was going to say future episodes, past episodes.
Future episodes too.
Future episodes too. All the show notes will make things about Jansen embarrassingly easy to find over there, so feel free to check it out. Dudesanddads.podcast@gmail.com if you got ideas for future shows. Again, that feedback on whether or not you want us to do some sort of crazy conference, that'd be awesome. Let us know.
And if you're still into telephones, you can call 574-213-8702.
Leave us,
Leave us a voicemail.
Leave us a voicemail. We'll listen to it. Maybe even play it on the show. Friends, thanks for coming on board with us. As always, we wish you grace.
And Merry Christmas.
Oh, yes.
I broke it.